with all due respect.
Hey, we're Josh Ortegon and Gray Gaines, and this is With All Due Respect, the show where we keep it real about health, fitness, and performance. From weight loss to sports development, we're covering the conversations that matter.
Follow us on Instagram at Phnm Fitness, PHNM Fitness, and visit www.phenomfit.com to check out our training programs, coaching, and gear built for real results. Let's get into it.
All right, guys, for this episode, we have Alison Fahrenbach back for episode 3.0, especially talking about cholesterol, which I feel is very timely to things that are going on with clients and people I know. What do you think?
Yeah, and the trends of it all. And I feel like we regularly talk to Allison. She's one of those people that we have conversation going constantly. And when I reached out to her, it was between cholesterol, and I even mentioned in the episode one other thing, and we ended up nailing down cholesterol because it was just timely in both of our coaching realms. So all the things you need to know about cholesterol. And I even had one of my friends listen to it, and she's like, she just speaks in such a calm manner too, where you fully understand everything and you don't feel like there's information overload, you
Yeah,
know?
she does a great job. So here
Yeah.
are the goods, the bads, the pros, the cons, things we don't know, things we do know about. All right, with all due respect, we are back and Gray's back. Gray, you can
Yay.
show him the ring. You can show him the ring, Gray. It's okay. You can show him the ring. You can show
See
him.
if I remember how to podcast. There she
There she
is.
is.
Oh,
And
it's
we are back.
beautiful.
We are
Thank
back,
you.
I think for the fourth time. Is it fourth or three?
Three.
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 Yeah.
Three.
And I'm gonna be so proud of myself for this one with Alison Fahrenbach.
Yes. Yay, Josh. Like
Alison
third time is a
Fahrenbach.
charm.
It's a
Yes,
charm.
Alison Fahrenbach for this episode. And Gray, you chose cholesterol.
Yeah, I can't remember, Allison, what we were talking about between the two.
Mhm.
I had two things that I brought up to you, and I have such brain fog just from, planning a fucking wedding,
Yeah.
and completing the said wedding. But I think we nailed down cholesterol because it was kind of relevant to what people are talking about right now. And we find that, every 6 months there's a new trend that people are gung-ho on. So we felt like
Yeah.
cholesterol would be a good topic of conversation for
And
And
just like
today.
actually,
usual,
I made a post on why like high cholesterol is not because of your eggs or something like that. And you
Yes.
saw it and you responded to it, and we just got to talking. And I think all three of us have just bumped into so much confusion, and there's so much mythology around cholesterol. So I do think it's sort of helpful to just do like a good, cholesterol episode. Like, what is cholesterol? What is LDL? What is HDL? Like, what elevates cholesterol? Does elevated cholesterol even mean increased risk for heart disease? Because that's where the people really freak out, is they see high cholesterol, they see high LDL, and they're like, oh my God, I'm at increased risk of heart disease. And that's not necessarily true. And so hopefully that's all stuff we can get into today for everybody.
no, I like
Yeah.
that. Can you just explain to us what cholesterol is,
Yeah.
why it's important? Give me
Yeah.
the cholesterol 101. If somebody's listening and they're like, well, I'm listening because I got a blood report that said my cholesterol is high, but the doctor didn't even sit down with me. They just handed me the report and sent me on my way. What do I do with this information?
Yeah. So I think I always like defining terms whenever I do a podcast, because so many people hear cholesterol and they think bad immediately. They don't even understand really what cholesterol is and what it does, and that it's actually quite necessary in the body. So cholesterol is this waxy fat-like substance that the body needs to build cells, to make hormones, like your sex hormones. Like, it uses it as a building block for our estrogen and testosterone, and to produce vitamin D. So like, a lot of times you'll see low vitamin D in people who have really, really low cholesterol. So it's essential for your health. And it's like anything else. Too much can essentially become a problem. And there's two forms of cholesterol. So there's LDL and there's HDL. And LDL stands for low density lipoprotein, and HDL stands for high density lipoprotein. And the way I like to tell people is you think of LDL, L for lousy, and H and HDL for happy. So we think of HDL as the good cholesterol, and we know that LDL, if it's too high, is quote unquote bad cholesterol. And your liver makes most of the cholesterol that you need. Now, one of the myths is that if you eat too much dietary cholesterol, so like things in eggs, shrimp, etc., that's going to lead to high cholesterol, but it's actually not true because the body is a self-regulating mechanism. So your liver will actually downregulate cholesterol production if you're intaking more cholesterol through dietary cholesterol. Like dietary cholesterol does not correlate to blood cholesterol. And so you really want the right balance of cholesterol, meaning you want a good ratio between LDL and HDL. You want cholesterol to be in a good spot. Low cholesterol has its own set of health risks, but that's usually the basic explanation of cholesterol that I give to people.
When we go, it was very interesting because people think, logically, they would think, well, if I eat too much cholesterol, then I'll have too much cholesterol and then I'll get high cholesterol. You know, your brain would tell you, well, if I eat a ton of eggs and there's a ton of eggs and cholesterol or cholesterol in eggs and I have high cholesterol, then I should quit eating eggs.
Yeah. There's no correlation between dietary cholesterol and high blood cholesterol. And it really is because your body has a smart feedback system. If you intake more dietary cholesterol, your liver will automatically downregulate production of cholesterol. So now I'm sure there are some exceptions to that rule. In the literature, there's some hyper-responders, people who are just hyper-responsive to too much dietary cholesterol, but it's not common. So there's really no correlation between dietary cholesterol and high cholesterol. What drives up high cholesterol is saturated fat. Yes, saturated fat. Even people on the internet who will say like beef and things like that, it's not a problem for people who have high cholesterol. That's not necessarily true. We can talk about that, but it's saturated fat, trans fat, sugar, right? Too much processed carbohydrate, low fiber, and inflammation. That's what drives high cholesterol.
Sounds like you named the things that are a culprit for a lot of bad things.
Right. I know.
Right.
There's like such a common thread throughout like the health behaviors and health habits we should just be implementing as human beings, like regardless of our health concern.
High sugar, high processed sugar, low fiber, and what else did you say?
Inflammation.
Causes
Inflammation.
inflammation.
And high saturated fat and then trans fat, which essentially we would only find in ultra processed foods.
I was gonna say
Processed
processed. If you decrease processed foods, you kind of decrease trans fats.
You would decrease the trans fat, you would also decrease the sugar. Like you would just pull that sugar down. And then that would also help with inflammation as well, right? We think about this logically. That would also help with inflammation, and that would also help with insulin resistance, which is a really common. I don't want to say that there's a positive effect, but there's a correlation. Those two kind of walk side by side. Like a lot of times you'll see people with poor glucose control or slight insulin resistance, and then they also have elevated LDL or high cholesterol.
Oh, okay.
I think like inflammation is such a trigger word right now too. Everybody's inflamed in some way, shape, or form. When you talk about inflammation with high cholesterol, what does that encompass? Like what kind of inflammation are we talking about?
So poor gut health, poor liver health, poor detoxification. Liver support is one of the key strategies to managing cholesterol because your body is, again, I go back to it's a self-regulating mechanism. It can effectively process and remove said cholesterol, even if it is too high. If you have a good diet, good liver detox, enough fiber, you can properly bind that and excrete it out. So when we don't have good detox capabilities, we automatically get inflammation because things aren't moving out of our system properly. So that's primarily what I would think of when I would think of inflammation. when I also say inflammation, I'm also talking about things like poor gut health. I'm also talking about things like insulin resistance or metabolic dysregulation. Um, those types of things drive up inflammation in general. And then we would see that translate into maybe high triglycerides, or we would see that translate into high fasting blood glucose or high fasting insulin. And we would see that translate into maybe high LDL, which again, I know I mentioned it earlier, but having high LDL too doesn't necessarily mean you're at an increased risk of heart disease. It's far more nuanced than that. So a lot of people will see high LDL or they'll even see high total cholesterol and they automatically panic and they think that they're predisposed to having heart disease. And in reality, it's less about the LDL total and more about the particle size of those low density lipoproteins. So one of the first sort of continued tests that I would recommend somebody run if they're concerned about high LDL would be a particle size test. Are those particles small? Are they dense? Are they going to really clog those arteries and create plaque? Or are they big and are they fluffy? Because it's a totally different landscape based on those particle sizes. Like having high LDL doesn't automatically mean you're doomed to have heart disease. Because there's a genetic component to cholesterol too. Some individuals do just have higher cholesterol. They just do. There's a
I
genetic
had a
component.
friend of mine who years ago did triathlons.
Mhm.
Uh, and most people who do like Ironmans, their lifestyle's pretty solid, right? Now their inflammation's probably high, right, from the volume of what they do, right? They don't feel great. But when he was really training, he everything about his diet was very good, his health was very good, his body weight was very good, obviously. And like he went and had like a cholesterol, normal cholesterol of 300.
Mhm.
Come to find out, mom had 300. Grandma had 300, right? So there was a
Yeah.
genetic component to his cholesterol.
Yeah.
Does that person, because of that cholesterol, have a higher risk of heart disease? And or is it just they just have high cholesterol? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I know the doctor put
Yeah.
me on meds, they were up in arms. He came to me about it. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I thought I'm doing everything right. My cholesterol is 300. It's genetic. I got to take all these meds."
Yeah. It's I think it's FH, familial hypercholesterolemia, something like that is what that's called. Like if you just have this genetic family component where you trend towards having higher cholesterol. Again, does it mean you're naturally at a higher risk of heart disease? No, I would definitely be doing further testing to determine that. That doesn't necessarily mean though that you shouldn't work on lowering it because, we all know, but for the listening audience, 80% of all chronic disease is diet and lifestyle related, meaning it's epigenetics, not genetics. Genetics only account for 20% of disease. I always say genetics loads the gun, but diet and lifestyle pulls the trigger. So you might have a genetic predisposition to having higher cholesterol, but what you do in your daily life, how you live, what you eat, how you sleep, if you exercise, those types of things are going to play far more of a role in whether or not that genetic predisposition expresses itself or not.
Mm.
So I think we have a good understanding for like somebody that reads high cholesterol if they're not active, if they don't eat healthy. I think we kind of know what those next steps would be. What about the person that is healthy? What about the person that does correct nutrition, that does exercise, that really works hard on their sleep? If they read high cholesterol, what's their next step?
So, like, how could they support cholesterol levels through diet and lifestyle? So, the first thing is get more fiber.
Yeah.
That's one of like the biggest things I recommend, particularly soluble fiber, which helps bind and remove that excess cholesterol. So, like oats, flax seeds, chia seeds, lentils, beans, if you tolerate them well, apples, berries, avocados. You can supplement too. You can do things like psyllium husk, things like that. But you really want to get a good, I would say, and it's fiber is very nuanced. It's very contextual. People always want this number, but I'm like anywhere between 25 to 45 grams of fiber per day based on how many calories you're eating. Are you male? Are you female? What do your bowels tolerate? How much water do you drink a day? That type of thing. So fiber is one of like the number one things I I recommend. The second is prioritize monounsaturated fats or anti-inflammatory fats, omega-3s, like specifically omega-3s, meaning are you eating salmon? Are you getting fatty fish? Extra virgin olive oil, walnuts, not polyunsaturated, not healthy saturated, monounsaturated fats. Like they literally raise your HDL and they help reduce LDL. They just do it naturally. So even a simple swap, and this is something I've done with my husband, is remove the saturated fat that he was eating and replace it with monounsaturated fats. This would definitely be one of those instances where if you're trying to lower your LDL, you do want to be mindful of the saturated fat that you consume, even if it's healthy saturated fat from something like beef. It's going to drive up that LDL. Saturated fat does have a correlation. I know there are some people out there who will be like, oh no, like beef is totally fine. And I'm like, no, actually, if you have somebody who has high LDL and let's say they do a particle test and they see that it's those dense lipoproteins and they're like, man, I really got to get my LDL down. Lower your saturated fat, swap it for omega-3s, monounsaturated fats. You don't have to worry about dietary cholesterol. I already talked about that. Moving daily, like exercising. I know you said like if this was somebody who was already healthy, so I'm going to assume that they're exercising and things like that. But when I say move daily, I mean think outside of just structured exercise too. Like just move more, like walk around more, be more active. The more you move, the better. Movement is medicine. Like it's good for insulin sensitivity. Supporting your liver, I mentioned that before, like liver detox, like poor liver detoxification is one reason why people see high cholesterol, because your liver is what manages cholesterol metabolism. Like if you can't get that excess cholesterol out, you're going to have a bottleneck. It's going to start to build up. So drinking enough water, it blows my mind how little water people drink. Like it blows my mind. Women who, like when I onboard a new client and I'm reading an intake form and it says something like 30 ounces of water a day. And I'm like, I have drank
It's
this
a water bottle.
like this is 40 ounces. I literally have this done by like 8:30, 9 a.m. Like I'm already like, oh gosh, I need to top off. Like I don't understand. So drink water. And when I say drink water, I also like to remind people that if you wait until you're thirsty to drink, you're already dehydrated.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot go on thirst. I don't care what people say. Like just fill something like this, keep it with you and just sip it like throughout the course of the day. I always like to recommend for liver detox, eat cruciferous vegetables every single day. I tell people to have 1 to 2 servings of cruciferous vegetables. If people freak out, I'm like, guys, that's 1 cup raw or a half a cup cooked. That is not a lot. And cruciferous vegetables are not just broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. It's arugula, it's radishes, it's turnips, it's rutabagas, it's bok choy, it's like there's a huge plethora of those good sulfur-producing cruciferous vegetables, which the liver just loves. It's like the easiest dietary strategy to support liver detox. Don't drink. Go ahead, like everybody can crap on me, but like alcohol impairs liver detoxification and it drives up inflammation. If you're trying to lower your cholesterol, sorry, not sorry, it's not your friend. And managing your blood sugar is really important, keeping blood sugar balanced. What else can healthy people do? Stress and sleep. So you asked earlier about inflammation, Gray, and like that drives up inflammation.
Right.
Just too much stress, poor sleep. So like there's a direct correlation between high cortisol, high triglycerides, high blood sugar, those types of things. And again, like I said, they usually walk hand in hand with high cholesterol. 9 times out of 10, if I see somebody who has high cholesterol, they also don't have great glucose control. They don't have good fasting insulin. They might have a little like a high HbA1c or like a high blood glucose. So just making sure that you're sleeping well, all the things. I don't have to go through them all, but like, 7 to 9 hours a night, keeping your sleep and wake times consistent across the course of the week, reducing your screen time before bed, getting sunlight in your eyes in the morning, like all of those things. And then lower your sugar and lower your refined carbohydrates. I like saying refined carbohydrates because even people who exercise and eat quote unquote healthy still often have a lot of processed foods in their diet. Your keto bread and your protein bars and your like that's all processed food, refined carbohydrate. So whole foods, natural form, because those foods are naturally going to come packaged with more fiber. So eating like whole fruits and vegetables and grains that are less processed. So like favoring something like quinoa or brown rice, if your gut tolerates it, over white rice is more beneficial if you are trying to lower your LDL, because again, you're going to be getting more fiber and sweeping that out of the body. It's going to help with insulin resistance. It's going to help lower that LDL, and it's going to help lower your triglycerides. And what else? If you have LDL and you do exercise and you already eat well, the other thing I would do is say do further testing before you panic.
Right.
Like, honestly, this would be one of those instances where you would want to look at the LDL particle size. You could also do ApoB, look at your triglyceride to HDL ratio, look at your fasting insulin, look at your glucose, get a really comprehensive picture to make sure that, like, hey, is my body still healthy even with this higher LDL? Because some people are. Some people just naturally have higher cholesterol.
Would you compare
Right.
this a little bit? I have a natural higher blood pressure, but it's not high.
Mhm,
I wouldn't be high blood pressure, but I'm 132 over 88.
mhm.
I have an elevated high pressure, and I have a natural, regular, elevated, my resting heart rate's 68. And that's not great, but it's not phenomenal. Um, I do a lot of jujitsu. It drives the heart rate up. Yet when I talk to general doctors, they're like, "Oh, that's high blood pressure." And I'm like, "I don't know, because is it high blood pressure?" And I kind of the only reason I bring that up is I feel like maybe that's the same thing about when they say high cholesterol. Well, let's look at everything else involved before
Yeah,
we
you
go
always,
running, getting on a statin.
well, and some of that's just the difference between conventional medicine and then somebody like me who's an FDNP who's a functional lens. So I don't look at the body in silos. I look at the body as a whole. Conventional medicine is always going to look at the body in silos. They're going to look at things in isolation. So with somebody like
This number,
you, Josh, it
it's
would be
that.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be like with anybody. Like, okay, you do have blood pressure that runs a little bit high, but let's look at that contextually within the larger picture of who you are and your health and how you live your life and what your habits are. And then what do we think about everything? Because there's always variances. I know I've said this before in your guys' podcast, but I work primarily with women in perimenopause and menopause. And have women who have very low hormones on paper, but they feel amazing. They feel absolutely wonderful. Now, on paper, if they were to go to the doctor, their doctor would like freak out and tell them their hormones are too low, but they feel great. On the flip side, I have women who have very high hormones on paper that look optimal, but they feel like trash.
Yes.
So there isn't always that correlation. And we're all bio individual. I tend to have lower blood pressure. You know, I feel great. So I don't, everybody's slightly different in that regard. And I definitely think the same would ring true with cholesterol.
Okay.
Um,
I
a
like
lot of people,
I just
go
like that.
ahead.
I just like that train of thought better. We recently got connected with a really good doctor that's cash pay that helps women with lifestyle hormones, that kind of stuff. And I was real skeptical at first. Like I'm like, this guy's gonna give everybody a GLP-1, and I just get nervous, right? Um, well, I had a conversation with him and his nurse, and he said something that kind of perked my interest. He goes, "Too many doctors treat just the blood work without treating the symptom." So he's like, I look at the symptoms that women and men are having
Mhm,
along with the blood work,
mhm.
because why the blood work might be really borderline, but they feel great, or they don't feel great, but their blood work is in where it needs to be. He goes, I don't think enough people treat the symptom. And I go, I never thought about that. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, with cholesterol, I always look at cholesterol in conjunction with other markers, particularly liver markers, and I always look at it in conjunction with insulin, fasting insulin, HbA1c, and glucose. And then if I think it's an issue, I will usually recommend something called an NMN, I think, profile, which is a lipoprotein. It's like a particle size test. And then we get a look at those particle sizes. And then if we see those small, dense like particles, then it's like, okay, now let's address it through diet and let's address it through lifestyle. Versus just panicking over somebody having higher LDL, because LDL can raise with age and with hormonal shifts as well.
Because cholesterol has to do with hormones.
Yeah. So it's very common for women in perimenopause or menopause to notice that their cholesterol is going up, be it their total cholesterol or be it their LDL. And they usually panic, but it's really just because their estrogen is declining, and that plays a key role in regulating lipid metabolism. So it's common that as we start to see estrogen come down, we see cholesterol come up.
Say that again. I think you said something. Estrogen has a large play in what?
Regulating lipid metabolism, fat metabolism. Yeah, lipid metabolism. It helps maintain healthy cholesterol levels. So it increases your good cholesterol and it decreases your LDL and it improves liver clearance. So having estrogen helps with liver clearance with that excess cholesterol. So as estrogen declines, you can kind of see this correlation where like cholesterol will just start to come up a little bit. It'll start to creep up a little bit.
Isn't the body amazing?
It is.
And I
Yeah.
sent some numbers of a friend of mine. This is very timely. I have a friend of mine that came to me very concerned about his cholesterol numbers.
Mhm.
And doctor and the family kind of heard about it, and everybody's kind of panicked about it. And his LDL was 155. It's a pretty good number.
Mhm.
So I started having a conversation with him, and I said, "Hey, send me everything you got going on, what you're doing. Ridiculous amount of coffee and nicotine patches a day. So
Okay.
very, very 40 ounces of water a day. He does jujitsu, sweats all day. He's carnivore, skips breakfast, can't sleep at night, and he's an attorney. High stress." And I was like, man, you sound like to me a walking example of things we need to read. Like, no wonder, right?
Yeah.
He's living on high amounts of meat and eggs, which, I mean, if you say you got high cholesterol, we need to decrease some of that. High stress, super dehydrated, sleeps very bad. Cortisol levels probably crazy because I mean, he's in court. I mean, he's a litigation attorney, right? Those guys don't just, those guys aren't just easy-go-lucky guys, right?
Right.
And I think his fiber intake when he sent me like a food log was like 17.
Yeah. Fiber is such a big one.
And yeah. And his inflammation was high in his markers.
Yeah.
So his high cholesterol, high inflammation, cortisol level was up, dehydrated,
Mhm.
and now
Yeah.
we deal with all this,
Yeah.
right? And just everything you're saying right now, I'm like, yep, that's him. Yep, that's him. And I think our goals were hydration, eating breakfast, cutting back on the meat fat, um, fiber, and then
Mhm.
some sleep strategy. I go, buddy, you change that, you might really change a lot of things on that blood work, and you probably feel better. I mean, dude, his coffee intake was like 700 milligrams a day.
Oh my God.
It
And
Gives
goes,
me anxiety.
I know it goes back to even just what I mentioned earlier, where there's like a common thread, right? Regardless of your health concern. Um, even so, like, and I was just thinking of this as you were talking, Josh, but like even weight gain can be a reason why our cholesterol goes up, right? And so if because body composition changes, because that increased belly fat or low muscle mass, if you don't have good muscle mass, if you don't have good skeletal muscle, and you're going to be more predisposed to having insulin resistance and things like that as you get older. And that will in turn lower your HDL, it will raise your triglycerides, and it will raise your LDL. So it's just being healthy, maintaining a healthy body weight, getting good sleep, like, dealing with your stress, regulating your nervous system, eating a good diet, like supporting liver health, like moving your body on a daily basis. Like just basic health habits can go a really long way for supporting good cholesterol levels. If in fact, again, you need to really lower that LDL, because LDL in and of itself does not necessarily mean increased risk of heart disease, which is what most people think. And that's why usually I'm not a test happy practitioner, but if somebody does have elevated LDL and they're concerned, and they also have high fasting insulin, or they have high blood glucose, or they have, high, HbA1c, or they have their ALT and AST is not good, or I see like inflammatory markers, like I CRP or something like that, then I would say, let's test further and see if this high LDL is a problem, because sometimes it's not. It really isn't. The history of cholesterol threshold in our country is very interesting. So for decades, it was, if your cholesterol was under 400, you were healthy. It only started becoming this 200 number, really only started to come on the map. And to everybody listening, don't take my word for it. Please go do your own research. But it only started becoming a thing when statins came on the market, because having a lower threshold allows doctors to prescribe more statins. And statins are a massive moneymaker for for pharmaceutical companies.
People
So
think that what they will.
yeah, so
literally not surprised.
Yeah, you can think about that however you want. And I'm not saying people should walk around with a level of 400 cholesterol and think that it's fine, but I am saying that you should be thinking about, well, why was it healthy for somebody to have a cholesterol of 300 in the 50s or the 40s, but now all of a sudden 300 would make your doctor's head implode and have them force feed a statin on you. So again, I just circle back to, like, we don't want to just say, oh my gosh, high LDL, massive 5-gun alarm. Like, what do I do? Do I have to get on a medication? Like, do I need to lower my LDL? Let's always pause and let's look at the broader context. Let's look at other lab markers. Let's look at the size of those particles, because that's really what's most important as a predictor of heart disease, right? Are you going to have a heart attack? Are those particles small and tight and dense, and are they going to coagulate in those arteries and cause plaque? Or are they big and large and fluffy and you're really not at a high risk? It's not just like high LDL that's this massive concern.
What about low cholesterol and the risks of issues of low cholesterol?
Yeah, so low cholesterol is interesting. I had low cholesterol, not low, but I was always like between like a 160 and a 180 for a while. And it's actually not good for hormonal health. It really isn't, because cholesterol is the building block for our sex hormones. So if you have low cholesterol, you're probably also going to then have low hormone capability. So there's downstream regulations from that. And I did listen to a podcast with, and for the love of me, I can't remember the doctor's name, but he was talking about how he perceives low dietary cholesterol to be a bigger problem than high dietary cholesterol in terms of early death and in terms of longevity, because we need cholesterol for, like I did mention, for producing hormones, but also for cellular repair and cellular rejuvenation. Like cholesterol is produced by the body, not because we don't need it. We need cholesterol. It's the same when people freak out about cortisol. Cortisol is a boogeyman. Your body doesn't produce something you don't need. Cortisol has a very, very necessary function in the body. Cholesterol has a very, very necessary function in the body. We can't produce vitamin D without it. So you don't want to have super low cholesterol either. And mine is now higher, but I'm just saying, you don't want to have really, really low cholesterol. The Goldilocks zone is what I say. And of course, there's bio-individuality. Some people are going to naturally have a little bit lower, some will have higher, nuance and context.
I kind
Would
of
your
see,
approach to low cholesterol be the same as to high cholesterol? Like, how are you working to
So
increase your
I would
cholesterol?
actually try to have somebody like eat more dietary cholesterol and uptick,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like try to increase their cholesterol a little bit. Like maybe we eat more fats, we eat more saturated, like low fat diets often correlate to low dietary cholesterol. So like that was where it came from me because I was a competitor for years and I was a really low, you know,
How
20,
low were
25
you?
grams.
When you say low fat, I always considered low fat below 15% of your diet if you're a dude. Like if you're a dude and you're below 15%, that's pretty low. Is it a different for a female?
So I like to keep dietary fat somewhere between 20 to 25% of daily calories for a woman, for most women. Again, there's like nuance and context, there's individualization there. But I mean, when I was in prep, my calories were low and my fat was probably like 20 grams a day. Like I probably had days where I was like 15, where it was like I wasn't adding, you know what I mean? It was like I was eating egg whites and chicken. So dietary fat was like super low. So if somebody's been having a really low fat approach, it's really common to see low dietary cholesterol. So in that case, I would just be like, let's look at your fat intake. Let's get your fats up a little bit, your good fats. Let's see if we can bring that cholesterol up a little bit naturally. Because across the board, that person's probably going to also have poor hormone function, low hormones.
Seems like cholesterol kind of works in there. You mentioned cortisol early, and I feel like there was a little kick online of everybody trying to get their cortisol as low as they can, right? They're like, oh, I got to get my cortisol low. And I'm like, well, good luck in the fight or flight life. Like, you
You
know,
don't you don't want low cortisol across the board. You want cortisol to be low at the right time and high at the right time. I think I think what the cortisol conversation is lacking is that cortisol works on a curve, meaning our cortisol levels fluctuate naturally throughout the course of the day. So your cortisol should be very high in the morning. You should have a good, strong, like healthy cortisol awakening response. And then as the day goes on, your cortisol should naturally decline. So you don't want it to, for example, be high at night but low in the morning. You're going to feel wired but tired, right? You're going to have no energy during the day, and then you're going to get this wind at night right before you go to bed. So saying like you just want your cortisol low across the board, you're talking about full on burnout, like
yeah,
adrenal insufficiency. You don't want that because you're not going to have any get up and go. So you want your cortisol to be high at certain parts of the day and you want it to be low at certain parts of the day. So that cortisol conversation is just it's so nuanced. I hate when people just talk about high cortisol being bad all the time because you're not really educating people that cortisol levels naturally fluctuate throughout the course of the day and you want a healthy cortisol curve, not just low cortisol all the time.
I also see it where I'm seeing it recently because I have a lot of friends, the hormone conversation, testosterone. I've been putting out a lot of content around
Mhm.
testosterone and what can you do before TRT, what to expect with TRT, all that kind of conversation.
Mhm.
And so many guys live this horrible, crappy lifestyle. They want to find a doctor to throw them on Cypionate. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of things you should do before because you're not educated about it. So the conversation recently has been estrogen, right, with men.
Right.
So a man gets on TRT, they automatically get thrown on an anti-estrogen
Mhm.
because the estrogen, the doctor just said, oh, if you increase your testosterone, your estrogen is going to come up. They're like they go hand in hand. They do it all the hand in hand. And I'm always cautious about that because I've seen the negatives in men where their estrogen tanks
It's too low.
and it's too
Yeah.
low because they're killing them with anti-estrogens when like I think you should usually test it with the TRT after a while and see where you're at before you throw somebody because I've had friends of mine that are on TRT, specific friends that I work out with. They're like, yeah, man, like my joints are killing me. I feel dry, like my hands hurt. I lift, and I'm like, well, what are you taking? They're like, well, this anti-estrogen is like twice. I'm like, oh, babe, you need to go get blood work again because they could be completely killing your estrogen. And it's like the cortisol conversation. It's almost like people think if I had zero cortisol, I'd be better. And men think if they had zero estrogen, they'd be better. I'm like, no, really, it don't work that way.
Yeah, no, it's homeostasis in both men and women with with the conversation around men and testosterone that you just mentioned, Josh, too. Like one of the things I like to see, which I don't always see in hormone replacement therapy clinics, is at some point running some kind of hormone metabolite test on somebody that's doing any kind of TRT, because that's going to give you more information as to what that individual does in terms of hormone conversion. In other words, when that man's testosterone gets to be too high, does he convert a lot to estrogen or does he not convert a lot to estrogen, right? Which pathway does he tend to go down? So doing some kind of hormone metabolite test on people that have hormone replacement therapy at some point, it wouldn't need to be like an ongoing. I love seeing that because that's going to give that prescribing practitioner more information as to what type of support this person would need. But men need estrogen. They don't need it in the amount that women do. It's the same as women need testosterone. We just don't need it in the amount that men do. But men still need estrogen.
Yeah, I'm a low converter.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
found that out because I got like estrogen, and I'm like, why does it hurt? Why does my joints hurt? Why is it dry? And I had low estrogen. I'm like, man, this stuff's, and plus, it's really hard on the body. The anti-estrogens are really hard on the body, right?
Yeah.
The cholesterol conversation. We went low cholesterol. We
Yep.
went high cholesterol.
Yeah.
If somebody does have high cholesterol and they bring it back down, whether it's with meds or lifestyle, what warning signs should they look at if that's coming back or creeping up? Maybe they're like, oh, I'm fine. I got it all leveled. I'm not going to the doctor anymore. But we all know things that don't get measured don't get managed, right?
Yeah.
So like people might make lifestyle changes. They think they're fine, and it's amazing how those little lifestyle changes start creeping back up, right? Like, and all of a sudden they're back doing the same lifestyle habits that got them high cholesterol. What things should they be looking at as a warning sign that maybe they need to go back?
They would want to be monitoring their labs because high cholesterol is one of those things that's not going to necessarily manifest in a symptom. You're not necessarily going to see that manifest in a symptom. But even if you don't run a lipid profile, if you see that you have low vitamin D, if you see that you have compromised liver markers, ALT and AST, if you see that your fasting insulin is coming up, if you see that your fasting blood glucose is high or your HbA1c is high, like then I would definitely be saying you might want to check a lipid panel and make sure that your cholesterol levels are where it would need to be. But you're not necessarily going to sit back and have symptoms that would make you say, oh, I think my cholesterol is high. It's not like it's not going to be something that manifests in a symptom like that. It's something that you would have to be monitoring like ongoing through lab work.
When a client of yours, or maybe just somebody you would know, has a conversation with their doctor, what are some things they should be asking for in order to get that kind of testing done? I know we mentioned a lipid panel, but I think a
That's a
lot
great
of people
question.
get confused of like, I don't even know what to talk to my doctor about or what to ask for.
That's a great question. And the tricky answer here is that you might not be able to get all of the testing that you want through your conventional doctor. And I know that that's challenging for some people to hear because I know that the functional outlet is not often comped by insurance. I know that it's often not something that's financially accessible to people. I know that for a lot of individuals, like going through their PCP or a conventional provider is all that they have available to them. But I will say that if you do have high LDL on a lipid panel that you've run through your conventional doctor, and your doctor's automatic response is, I think you need a statin, I would encourage anybody listening to come back and say, could you give me some other alternatives to the statin, please? I would like some options. Push your doctor to give you other options, and they're going to have to probably come back with ways that you could manage it through natural supplementation, ways that you could help lower it through diet and lifestyle, which I talked about today. Supplementation that can be helpful would be like CoQ10, red yeast rice, good omega-3s as an anti-inflammatory. Turmeric, curcumin has benefits and properties for lowering dietary cholesterol. Liver support will help lower dietary cholesterol, a fiber supplement, things like that. And you can request some kind of particle size test from your practitioner. You can see what they say. It's just important for people listening to know that it's not that conventional doctors are trying to be assy by saying no to certain tests. It's that they're not going to run a test that they don't know what to do with the results. All right. Like it would be like taking your lawnmower to a tractor mechanic and saying, can you fix my lawnmower? And the tractor mechanic's like, I only know how to work on tractors. Like, I don't really know that much about lawnmowers. So you're asking a conventional doctor to deal with a functional test that they don't really have any knowledge of looking at. I run into the same thing when I have clients who take a GI map, for example, that they run with me into their gastroenterologist, and the gastroenterologist is like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, what is this? This is not a valid test. It's not that it's not a valid test. It's that they aren't trained on that test. They
Right.
aren't trained to take the information from that test and implement it. So again, as tricky as it can be for people to hear this, I just think one of the best things we can do as Americans who are taking control of our own health is to understand when to take what problem to what provider. If you have any sort of chronic lifestyle-ish related problem, you are always going to have more success going down a functional channel or going through a health coach or something like that. If you have some kind of major health concern, I had an appendectomy in March, right? My appendix burst. I don't want a functional practitioner. I need a doctor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason that conventional medicine exists. When you need a life-saving antibiotic, you get your butt to the conventional doctor and you go through that type of channel. And we use both. You have to learn
Right.
how to use both. That would be like the best advice I would give is the conversation that you have with your practitioner. If you have high cholesterol and they recommend a statin, you just say, could you please give me some other options? I'm not sure how I feel about a medication. Don't ever feel pressured. Like, there
Right.
is a little bit of that white coat syndrome that's still present in society, particularly among like older adults. I notice it with my parents a lot, like, well, but the doctor said. It's like, but you have every right to advocate for yourself and say, hey, like, I appreciate you recommending the statin, but could you give me some diet and lifestyle guidelines? Could you give me some supplements? I would really like to think about this first. You don't have to feel pressured to do anything. You could also say something like, I heard that it's the size of the particles that actually matters more than the total LDL. Is there any way to test for that? And see what they say, if they can provide a test that's available to them. And if not, and you don't feel like you get good answers for them, then it might be worthwhile pursuing a functional channel.
I've heard
I
people
will.
I don't understand they're a doctor. Like, I've had clients come back to me or friends come back because you and I both know, like, when we have really good friends, how many of your good friends do you give it? Like, they're people I love. I do jujitsu with them. They're friends. They'll come to me. I'm going to help you because I love you. So I'm going to give you some advice. I'm usually a little bit more raw with them than I am client, right? Like, if they're a friend of mine, I'm like, don't do that. That's dumb. This is what you want to do, right? I can't say that to a client. But they say things like, I just don't understand why they would do that. And I don't understand why they would say that about creatine, as an example. They're a doctor. I go, yeah, but they're not. They don't
They're
get.
not given that education. Again, you, me, Gray, like, we have to appreciate that, because if they were given that education, our position wouldn't exist. Like, we would
Right.
not have jobs. So it's not that there's anything wrong with what your doctor's doing. It's they only have X amount of tools in their toolbox, and you're asking them for a tool that they don't have. They don't have the diet, lifestyle, nutrition tool in there because that's not a tool they were trained with. I have a client who's a doctor, and he has openly told me that he can only remember one nutrition class in med school. One. That's it. And he doesn't even really remember anything that he learned from it. And this is a brilliant man. He's so smart. I am amazed at him. When we started, he did not know the difference between a carbohydrate, a protein, and a fat.
But he's honest. He's honest, though.
So it's just not an education that they're given. It's not that they're trying to be cruel. It's not that they're trying to be facetious. They're doing the best they can with the tools that they have available in a system that is not necessarily working, towards their advantage.
Yeah.
I'll add to,
Um,
it was funny, before we got on, I had a conversation with one of our colleagues because I actually have a friend that's dealing with high cholesterol, and I was just asking for doctor references because she met with a
Yeah.
doctor that she didn't like. And you might know about this, Allison, but I had no idea. There's actually like a full website that you can go to called ifm.org, and it'll connect you
Yes.
with a functional medicine practitioner in your area. So I
Yes.
thought I'd bring that up because I think that's
Yes.
another. I mean, it's, you have Google, you
You
can search
can
anything, but that's
you
nice
can
to have it
even
together.
Google. So like I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Like I can Google functional medicine, Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
FDNP, functional, like functional health, functional coach, functional something in your area, and you will get things that pop up.
Mhm.
Also, remember that telehealth is a wonderful thing, right? So even if you don't necessarily find a provider in your area, look outside of that area. Google like functional provider specializing in high cholesterol, right? Because we all specialize in something different. And you'll get tons of people cropping up. And most providers now do telehealth. So you can meet with somebody on the other side of the country who can still help you, even if you can't necessarily find somebody in your
Right.
area. So that is one of the benefits of, the internet and technology and things like that.
Right.
Allison, I have a copy and paste email when I have a client or a friend that's getting blood work done. They're like, "Hey, I'm going
Mhm.
back for blood work." And I copy and paste an email to them about questions to ask
Yes.
and what to see if they can get tested, to check their insurance on other things they want to get tested, what would be the cost of that, and then another email for if they go to a lab,
Mhm.
what to ask that lab and what you want to get tested because you could get you might not have a doctor that's going to get your vitamin D levels or some other levels, and you run it through insurance and it's 150. You go
Mhm.
to LabCorp and you do it, it's $17.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
educate them on, hey, if you're going to get blood work, here's some questions. Ask these things, ask if you can get these things tested.
Mhm.
And if you can't, here's another separate email. So when you go to the lab, ask them these questions because you want to get these things tested so we can see some numbers that maybe the doctor doesn't see medical necessary or your insurance doesn't see medical necessary. Or if you run it through your insurance, it's going to be way higher than it is if you just go to LabCorp and get it done.
And using your HSA or your FSA too, if you have one. So, like, for example, when I order labs for clients and I can order serum labs, functional testing, et cetera, the platform that I order through takes HSA and FSA. So, a lot of times clients will use those health savings accounts and they'll pay for their lab work that way. So, just do your research first and be like a little bit savvy and see what you can do financially. Um,
Yeah, I just don't. I think people don't know anything about blood work, what the
Mhm.
doctor can run, what you need to get. Also, they get frustrated because I've had multiple clients or multiple people email me and say, "Hey, I got my blood work done, but I don't have a follow-up with my doctor, and my chart just sent it to me. I have all these blood work number. I don't know what
what
anything."
to do with them, which is such a shame. I know that that happens sometimes. Um, all I know is when I do labs with a client, I send them, I either do a Zoom with them going over the results, or I do a Loom video walking them through the results. And then I do a typed analysis. And then I send it to them with a copy of their lab so they have it on file. Like I want people to really understand what they're looking at. It's a shame when healthcare does that, but I really think that's just an overscheduling issue and that they're just doing too much. They're trying to see too
Yeah,
many patients.
could be a system issue and big hospital issue. And like you said before, I had strep throat at Christmas. I'm so glad I could go see somebody get an antibiotic. I had an orthopedic put my neck back together. I'm really grateful. I wish I could give them a
Yep.
hug every day. Right? I'm
Yep.
really grateful. They're great at what they do. Don't, like you said, if you can't walk because you tore a ligament in your knee, please don't go see a functional
Right. Like you don't want a functional medicine doctor. You want a conventional healthcare provider. There are even times where so let's say, for example, I run a GI map. This has nothing to do with cholesterol, but that's a functional stool test, and I see blood in the GI tract. I can't handle that as a functional practitioner. I have to immediately refer that person out to a gastroenterologist for colonoscopy or an endoscopy so they can find where the bleeding is, right? Like, we should feel very grateful for conventional medicine and all of the life-saving care that it provides us with. It's just, again, I just circle back to, you have to understand when to take what issue to what person. Like, you cannot take a lawnmower to a tractor mechanic. You must take a lawnmower to a lawn mechanic, like that kind of thing. Like, all of us have different tools in our toolboxes. If we think about this logically, if doctors were given nutrition and lifestyle training, registered dietitians, health coaches, personal trainers, like functional practice, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a need for our position. And it's because we fill the gap that is left by conventional healthcare. So that's just the unfortunate truth. I try to equip my clients to have good conversations with their practitioners as much as possible, but sometimes you really have to go elsewhere for the information that you want.
Mm-hmm. This is a really good conversation, not just cholesterol, but I think this is a podcast that people need to hear in order to equip them to advocate for their own health. I do feel like we're changing. Maybe it's just a population we talk to and we hang out with, right? I mean, somebody just recently gave me the numbers of the percentage of the population that goes to the gym. And I'm like, well, all my friends go to the gym. Like, I don't, like, that's all I know is that population. I guess I'm within the small 4% of people that do it. And so when I hear numbers about people that like don't eat healthy, or like when you see obesity numbers or people that go to the gym, or I'm like, wow, is it really that high? Because all my friends go. I guess that's just my environment, right?
Yeah.
90,
whatever it was that came out, that's like been all over the internet, where it's like 93-ish% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. So, that you do the math, like that's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. And cholesterol falls into that because cholesterol is a branch off the metabolic dysfunction inflammation tree.
Okay.
Right.
Do you feel like, and I said it might just be my population, but do you feel like the tide is turning with people who are starting to advocate for their own health? Are you running into more people that are like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go that route? Or
I think a lot more people are becoming more open-minded to alternative forms of healthcare. I think a lot more people are interested in the functional side of things, or the root cause, or the, however you want to verbalize it, I call it like the whole picture perspective versus that siloed approach, right? You sort of think about conventional medicine as looking at one puzzle piece, and functional medicine is looking at the whole puzzle. So I think more people are becoming interested in that. I think where I noticed the big discrepancy is with like older people. So like, like I said, I coach a lot of women my age or older. So women who are older than me, they still do fall into that. Well, my doctor said this. My gastroenterologist said this. A little bit of that white coat syndrome, where they expect to go to the doctor and that doctor is going to tell them exactly what they need to do, and that's what they need to do. It's like the gospel. Versus somebody my age or somebody a little younger who might say, well, the doctor recommended this, but I'm going to do my own research, and I'm going to check things out myself, and I'm going to think through this and maybe look at some alternatives. And that's really what I would recommend to absolutely everybody listening, which is there's nothing wrong with listening to your doctor's opinion, but it's an opinion. You don't have to necessarily take action on it. There's nothing wrong with saying, I want all the options laid out in front of me. I want all the information, and then I'm going to make the best decision for myself and for my body as to how I want to approach this and how I want to handle this. And if you can get the job done with diet and lifestyle, it's always preferable to taking medication. No matter what, however you want to spin this, taking a medication is always a Band-Aid to the symptom, and it's not addressing the root cause. You take a statin, you're going to lower your cholesterol, but if you come off of that statin, your cholesterol is going to go right back to where it was, because you've not done anything to address why your cholesterol was high in the first place. You're just suppressing it with the medication. Same with anything, right? You've got high blood pressure and you take a blood pressure medication. You're not actually correcting the cause of the blood pressure. You're just lowering your blood pressure through a medication. So in my opinion, it's always preferable to try to get to the root cause of it. It's like if you're standing on a tack and you're screaming, ow, I'm on a tack. Do you take a Tylenol for the tack or do you get your foot off the freaking tack? Like you take your foot off the effing tack, right? Like, but people don't seem to think that way when it comes to, when it comes to healthcare. It's like,
I have a
you
story
know,
that I will update you guys on because you guys would appreciate it. I have a client down 86 pounds in 18 months.
oh, congratulations.
Former athlete, so he knows that. He came to me, he's like, "Hey man, I'm fat. I don't work out. I eat horrible. I'll do whatever you tell me." One of those guys, because right? I'll do whatever you tell me.
Right.
So he's lost 86 pounds. He was on blood pressure and cholesterol medicine. He's off the cholesterol medicine. His blood pressure is not high, but his doctor is keeping him on it.
Okay.
His doctor is keeping him on it, and his doctor made a really good point. I feel like, okay, I understand the doctor. He goes, it's been his doctor since he was in his early 20s, and he goes, I've seen you lose and gain weight many times in the last 12 years. He goes, I don't want to take you off the blood pressure medicine until you can maintain this for 6 months.
Right.
And he's like,
Yeah.
I want to get off it. I said, no, I understand what he's saying. Because if you just keep going on and off and on and off and on and off, it's probably bad. I said, but let's prove him wrong. Let's keep this off for 6 months. And then if he's says 6 months and I'll take you off it, hold him to the fire on that. Like at the 6 month
Yeah.
mark, go to him and be like, you said 6 months. I'm still 86 pounds down.
Right.
Hold him to the fire on that. At first, he was a little bit upset because he's like, this doctor's just trying to make money and sell me meds. Well, no, he's just seen you do this 1,000 times. Own it, own that, because he have, and
Mhm.
keep it off for 6 months, and then but hold him to the fire of that.
Yeah, and I can see the validity and the reasoning in using something like a statin or a blood pressure lowering medication to control things while you simultaneously work on diet and lifestyle to get to the root cause. And then eventually you peel back that medication, but the goal should never be to just get on a medication and take it for the rest of your life.
I don't
The
want
goal should always be,
that's my fear.
that
That's
kind
my
of thing.
buddy that has high cholesterol. He's like, man, I'm really afraid to get on something because I don't want to start down that journey. It's like you ever seen the commercials for the commercial where it sells uh medication to help people who take pain pills poop?
Yes.
Have you seen that? It's like, well, for those people that are taking narcotic pain medications, we're going to sell you something that helps you poop. Well, man, they're just gonna that sounds like a good little network marketing deal they got going on. Like, I'm gonna sell you this and sell you this and sell you this. And his concern is I just don't want to start down that path. He's only 35 of on something, then on something, then on something, then on something. And now I'm on 7 medications. I'm 45 years old and I'm unhealthy. He goes, I want to get ahead of that now. I said, I like that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, I always appreciate you guys having me. I feel like it's just like I get to chat with friends.
No,
Yes,
This
it's
is
so
really
fun.
good.
fun.
And like I have sent there's I do have some female clients and I do acknowledge them. I always give them said you can work with Gray
Mhm.
because I understand I'm a dude. I like we're cool. Like that doesn't bother me. I
I've
do
had plenty of male coaches who are great, Josh.
yes. And I will and I can't I have some women that we're helping. I'm saying, hey, if you want to work with Gray, that doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm just going to give you that option if you want to work with a female. And I do have female clients that I'll say things, but I always like to reinforce them with our podcasts.
Mhm.
So I'm like, hey, go back and listen to Allison, go follow her, and watch this because the more people I can get to tell them a similar story,
Yes. I do the same thing,
helps them.
Josh. Like I'll share posts that, other professionals make or other podcasts with my clients and just be like, "Oh, look,
It's
Yeah.
I
the
am not
same.
the only one."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I am not the only coach who's saying this. So, like here, like
I
have
had
it
a,
crammed down your throat like 10
had a
times. So,
tell me, man, this is a 58-year-old man. He's 240 pounds. His blood sugar numbers are up a little bit. And I was like, we need to increase that protein. We need to get you to like 150 protein. And he's like, man, it just seems like anything over 100, that's a lot. I'm like, come on, bro. 100 grams of protein a day is not a lot of protein. It's
Baby step.
yeah. I said he's like, I'm trying to get you there, so get over 100. But then I just send him posts of things or Grace posts where she's like, I was like, I got a girl that's killing you
Yeah.
on protein right now, dude. Like
Yeah.
killing you. Do you ever share your own nutrition and stuff with people? Do you share your own? And this is just because this came up with me lately. I had a client do a before and after picture, and he's like, "Well, what do your before and after pictures look like?" I said, "Well, my before picture was when I'm 24. You don't understand, like, like, and you don't want to see mine because I'm not asking you. You gotta do you, buddy. You gotta do you
Yeah.
and what's good for you." Um, I don't think I have a before picture that's maybe 10 years ago. I think when Rachel was pregnant with Asher, I think I went on the pregnancy journey with her. I mean, I got like 226 and was heavy. And then
Sympathy weight gain.
yeah, the great I'm like, I want Cheerios too. I want ice cream too. I want spaghetti too. You're eating all that. Like, I can't, you know.
Oh,
And I
I
think
know Alston and I are both going to do the same thing. He's
I
going to be
ended
like,
up
yeah,
losing
ice cream.
26 pounds after that.
Right.
I think that's my last before picture. But do you ever share your, do people ever ask you like, well, what do you eat? Well, what do you
Mhm.
do?
Yeah, and
But
I will
sometimes like,
share, I will,
they don't
I
understand
will
the
share
term.
what's general. I won't share what's specific anymore because I did used to share what was specific. And I feel like then certain women will walk away with, well, I should be doing that. And at the end of the day, somebody's macro breakdown and somebody's caloric load is determined by so much more than just their age and their weight and their height. I have a very deep, deep, deep competitive history. I have basically spent the majority of my 20s and 30s in a chronic deficit. So I do not have this massive capacity for calories. Like I'm not a 3,000 a day calorie type of girl because I've had so much dieting history.
Very interesting.
So
Okay.
I dislike giving like I will share what I eat in terms of like these are the foods that I'm eating. I will share my meals. I will not share calories anymore. I will not share macros. I mean, I did like a question box on my stories the other day and somebody asked me how tall I was and what I weighed and I posted it. And I literally had 3 women send me messages. Oh, well, I'm this tall and I weigh this much. Now I feel bad. And I'm like, oh my God, that's just like not what I want. So I feel like just sharing too much like specific information is just not always the best thing. Like I train 5 times a week and then 4 times a week, and I do like an every other. So like I'll do 5 times a week, then 4 times a week, then 5 times a week, then 4 times a week. I don't have most of my perimenopausal, menopausal women train that much. I can train that much because I'm used to handling that much from all of the years that I've been lifting. Like I started lifting when I was 18. I have a very strong capacity for volume. Like everybody's different.
Do you?
So then I'll have people be like, well, should I train 5 times a week? And I'm just like, oh, I just don't share specifics anymore.
I think that's a good. I've had clients be like, well, what are your calorie intake? I said,
I just don't do it anymore.
let me
Plus
prep.
it changes. It changes. I'm always experimenting with things and I'm kind of like my N of one and I'm a guinea pig sometimes. And sometimes I push my calories up and then I pull them down a little bit and they're all over the place. And so I don't have any problem posting like the foods that I eat or the amount of times a day I eat and things like that. But when people ask for like meal macro breakdown or I just don't bother because it's just,
I
I also get way too many questions. Like, for example, I don't like a big meal before I train. Like a
yeah.
lot of times people are really like into these big pre-workouts. I actually don't feel good when I train on a really full stomach. So my pre-workout meal, which I eat like an hour before I train, is my smallest meal of the day. Just across the board. It's my smallest protein, smallest carb, smallest fat. I'll post that and it's like, you're supposed to eat this before you train. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even want to get into this. Like, this is what works for, and my biggest
Yeah.
meal of the day is my dinner. I eat a big dinner every night. people are like, oh, you're supposed to eat your smallest meal, eat dinner like a pauper or whatever it is. I'm like, not me. I feel great when I have a really big freaking dinner and then I go to bed. So
Yeah.
Made the
It
mistake.
just depends. I tell people all the time though when they ask me, I'm like, until you're ready to train like I do, you're not ready to eat like I do. So
yeah. And that's another thing
sorry.
too, is there's just not enough room, I think, on social media to give the context. So like, even when I post, like sometimes because I will very often, my post workout, I'll eat something like, I eat a lot of cream of rice. I do
Mhm.
Chex cereal, like
Yeah.
flavored Chex cereal. And people are like, you're eating sugared cereal. And I'm like, I have a truckload of muscle for my frame and I have been training since I was 18 and I'm 41 and I'm a figure pro. And just when you train like I do, like I just trained for like an hour and 45 minutes lifting,
I'm
then we
fine.
talk. Then we talk.
I
Then
made
we
the
may
mistake.
talk.
I made the mistake of
My
telling you.
insulin sensitivity is bomb. Like
Yeah.
My
I'm
insulin
totally fine.
sensitivity, I've made the mistake in the past, and I'm asking you for my own advice because I've made the mistake. I made the mistake before of this. I told a client one time I do gummy bears post lift,
Okay.
and all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm gonna go get some gummy bears." I'm like, "What are you doing, bro?" Like, no, that's what I do. Or I can do 400 to 450 carbohydrates in a day. My
Yeah.
insulin sensitivity is super high.
I have a high carb load too for like in terms of ratio for my calories, a lot of it comes from carbs.
I can get up to 50% of my intake is carbohydrates.
Yeah.
People are like, well, I want to do that. Dude, so I stopped. I'm asking you really,
Right.
come on.
Yeah.
I stopped. I share that I lift multiple times a week. I do jujitsu. I eat high protein. I eat first thing in the
Mhm.
morning. I don't eat 2 hours before I go to bed. I make sure I eat even
Mhm.
meals throughout the day. I share with them concepts,
Same.
done sharing with people what I do because
Specifics. Yeah. It's
I mean, I had a guy that doesn't have a lot of muscle and he's a little bit chubby, and all of a sudden he's telling me he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get those gummy bears after workout." I'm like, "Come on, bro." I'm like mad at myself.
And yeah, and it's because there's not enough context given. And there's a difference between somebody like me or you who's been lifting for decades and has accumulated a good amount of muscle mass versus somebody who hasn't. There's also a difference, like I'm a very genetically slender person. I trend towards just naturally being leaner. So people will be like, what do you do to keep yourself so lean when you're not competing? And I'm like, yeah, I really don't. It just kind of happens. Like it's just where I sit. Like, you know, somebody like me can get away with something like, a sugary Chex post workout, whereas somebody who genetically tends to be thicker or heavier or carry more body fat is probably not, or has maybe less insulin sensitivity, isn't going to be able to. So yeah, I'm with you, Josh. I just generalized concepts, not specifics.
I do share Gray's calorie intake with people when I have guys that are like, "I'm afraid to eat." I'm like, "Gray eats 2,700 calories a day. Give me a
That's
break."
I read Gray's and I'm just like, go away. Like I would be so full, I wouldn't know how to move.
But that's the whole difference. It's like it's definitely gone down now because I'm not teaching right now, but I was teaching 8 classes a week on top of working out at CrossFit 3, 4, 5 times a week. Like 30 to 40% of my week was spent in a gym. So
Yep.
I'm eating the calories to sustain that,
And if you can handle it, then you do it.
Do
Like
it.
I always tell my female clients, the goal is not to eat as little as possible. The goal is to eat as much as possible while maintaining good body composition. We're not getting excessively fat because we don't want our
Yep.
rate of fat growth to supersede muscle growth, that type of thing. But it's never to eat as little as possible. It's always to
No.
eat as much as possible.
Right.
So
Well, we appreciate you very much.
Yes, thank you again.
We'll
Round 3.
do another
yes,
one.
thank you for having me, guys. I always love chatting with you.
All right, we'll see
We'll
y'all.
do another one in the fall.
All right.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.